What's up guys? In my last video I installed an Extron's IB70AA4R into my car. If you want to watch that video, I've linked to it in the card above. Please go check it out after you finish this video. Today I'm going over the details of the electrical connections on the Extron's radio as well as the stock Symphony 2 head unit that came with my car. This video is specific to this head unit and to my 2007 Audi A4 B7. I have no problem trying to answer your questions, but if your installation deviates from this, then chances are that I might not have the answer. I'm not an Extron's expert, nor am I an Audi expert. Looking at the back of the head unit, there are several groups of connectors and some placeholders too. On the left, there's the antenna ports, USB ports. In the center is the Extron's expansion connections, and on the right side is the quad lock. Placeholders are labeled 3G, 4G, and DAB for digital audio broadcast. This unit uses USB dongles for those features, though my research shows that these do not work within the North American market. Kinda disappointing. There's also a phantom USB port. Looks like one could fit here, but the engineers decided that 4 are enough. On the front of the unit, there's a micro SD card slot for memory expansion. I currently have a 128 gigabyte card with all the movies that I don't watch while I'm driving. Classics like Big Trouble in Little China and The Fifth Element. There's a second micro SD card slot used for offline map solutions. I don't use that, so I can't say how well or poorly it works. The front side also has a built-in microphone that can be used with Bluetooth phone calls or with your virtual assistant of choice. In the antenna section, there is the stock radio antenna connector. Looks and fits the antenna connector for the stock Symphony 2 radio. There are connections for the Wi-Fi and GPS antenna. These are SMC connectors, which are similar but slightly smaller than coaxial cable connections. Extron's includes both these antennas with cables around 2 meters long. That's roughly 6 feet in Freedom units. One USB port looks different than the rest, but I've found they all work exactly the same. They're USB 2.0 and provide a theoretical whopping 2.5 amps of power and 480 screaming megabits per second of data on each port. These ports can be used with a variety of expansion dongles available on the Extron's website. The ports can also be used to expand media storage. I've connected a 256 gigabyte SSD and Android recognized and played media stored on the drive. No idea if larger SSDs will work, but if you want to buy one and send it to me, I'll test it out. Use my link in the description below for my recommended SSD. Moving on to the Extron's expansion ports. These are broken down into ports labeled A through F, but Extron's does not provide any functionality on ports E and F for this model. The 20-pin connector A has connections for RCA line outputs for front, rear, and subwoofer signal to send to a third-party amplifier. 2 RCA video outputs for remote monitors mounted in the headrest, for instance. An auxiliary video with stereo audio inputs, a front dash cam input, and a bunch of grounds for all the associated connections that I just listed. The 12-pin B connector. This connector is used to wire in a reverse cam. There's a signal to turn on a remote amplifier or to extend a retractable antenna. The connection to pick up a signal from the emergency brake and for when reverse gear is selected. For cars without a CAN bus network, SWC1 and 2 are analog inputs that can receive signals from the steering wheel controls. And there's one labeled Illumi. This is used to control the head unit front LED illumination, dimming it when the headlights are turned on to reduce glare at night. The 8-pin connector C is labeled for CAN bus. No adapter was included for this port with my radio, but I do plan to track one down and see if the Entertainment CAN bus network can be accessed from this location. I've already built the CAN bus decoding tool. I haven't made a video for this tool, but if you want to build one for yourself, check out the series of videos from Adam Varga. He's way smarter than I am and deserves full credit for all his hard work designing the hardware, Python code, and putting together videos that even I can follow along with. The last usable connector is the 4-pin D connector to use with a remote microphone. If you don't want to install the remote mic, the radio will still use the front-facing one by default. Extron's detects when the remote mic is plugged in and will then automatically use it instead. Before I get into the quad lock, here's how my A4B7 audio system works. The Symphony 2 head unit sends an amplified 20-watt signal to the front, left, and right door speakers. This signal is also split between the door speakers and sent to the speaker located in the center of the dash. An unamplified signal gets sent to the amplifier located behind the right rear trunk panel. The rear amplifier sends a 20-watt amplified signal to the rear door speakers and a 50-watt signal to the subwoofer located under the back deck. The speakers are 4 ohms, the door speakers are 6.5 inches with a 1-inch remote tweeter. The quad lock, also known as the ISO lock or just ISO connector, has 4 sections labeled A, B, C, and D, with the D section not being used on this car. On the left side of the screen is the pinout for the Symphony 2 radio, and the right side is the Extrons. Section A breaks down into 2 8-pin sections. Pins 1 through 8 are for amplified audio signals sent to front and rear speakers. However, the B7 only uses the outputs for the front speakers, and the Symphony 2 does not power the pins for the rear amplified speakers. Interestingly, Extrons does provide amplified signals for both front and rear speakers on these pins, but as the B7 doesn't do this, the wires are not connected to the quad lock. This means there is no conflict on those pins. Pins 9 through 16 are used for battery and accessory power and ground, CAN bus network connections, sending a signal to turn on the rear amplifier, a telephone mute pin, and an alarm connection. The Extrons does not use the mute or alarm pins, nor does it use the battery power connection, accepting only switched accessory power, so no conflicts on those 8 pins. Block B can have a few functions depending on how the car was spec'd. My car didn't have the remote CD changer or a Bose system, so those wires are not present. I do have a satellite receiver in the trunk, so those wires are terminated on Block B. However, Extrons does not use those pins for anything, so there's no conflicts here. Block C has wires for the K-line network and line level signal and a ground wire that gets sent to the rear amplifier for the rear speakers. The car doesn't have wires connected for the line level front pins, so there's no conflict there. But I did test both units, and both generate line level signals for the front and rear speakers, in case you want to use your own third-party amplifier for the whole system. Links for the pinouts of the quad lock 2005 to 2008 non-Bose Symphony 2 head unit, rear amplifier, and the 36-pin connector used on the Symphony 1 head unit are available on my accompanying blog post linked below. I also include the pretty pictures that I created for this video in the blog post in case you want to download a copy for your own reference. This is the end of the video. In my next video, I'm going to go over configuring the head unit to customize it for the Audi. Such things like getting the steering wheel controls to work with the head unit. Thanks again for making it to the end of the video. If this video helped you at all, or you're interested in seeing some of my future videos, then consider subscribing. You know where the link is. I'll catch you in the next one.